So let's get straight down to business. There's a few subjects I want to talk about in this video. The first one is we're looking at the raw data. The person that has been promising for a long time to help out with the structuring of the data so that it's in a raw format that we can put into Excel, and also he was going to put that data on the data, get it login on the data logger and get some information transferred onto the SD card. Has turned out to be completely and totally unreliable. So we're going to move on. That's what I've had to do the last couple of days. I've been just sifting away at trying to get the data in the format that we're looking at. And if I just run it, you'll see how we're getting it now. It is just raw data, but I know what it is, and I know that it has to be in this format in order for Excel to separate it. What we're looking at is we're seeing numbers separated by commas. So the first number separated by the comma is the magnetometer that is sending the data, and as you can see there's three different numbers. That's because there's three different magnetometers sending data to the receiver. The second set of numbers are the second set of numbers separated by a comma is the heading. Now, don't worry about it. I've just got it thrown on the desk at the moment. It's not important whether we're getting the right heading at the moment. What's important is we're getting the right data. We know that the magnetometers will work when they're positioned in their position and final resting spot. So the third set is the date time grouping. Let me just stop the video there a minute. Is the timing. You can see it's 10:09 and 19 seconds. The next one is 3 seconds after. The next one's 3 seconds after. So we've got a time and a date grouping, and that's your next set of numbers or data. So we've got a lot's going on here. We've got the magnetometer, we've got the heading, we've got the time, and we've got the date. And when I log that onto the SD card, which I'm trying to sort out myself now because we've got no other alternative but to do it ourselves now. We can put that in Excel and we can graph it. I'm going to be starting building the website tomorrow. I'm confident that I'll get there. I mean, I'd burn myself out with this. I mean, I've had to do it all myself, absolutely, from start to finish myself. I've had no help in the construction of this and sorting out the data. So it looks like that's going to be the fashion in which it's going to be finished off. So over the next few days we'll see how I get on. I mean, it could take weeks, I don't know. What it is I'm trying to do is blend the SD data logger program now with the program that we've got collecting all this data. I'm happy at the moment that all the data we're getting and in the format that we're getting it is finished as far as I'm concerned. We just need to convert that data now onto the SD card, and then we can graph it and start getting some processing done. I'll start the website building tomorrow. I'm not going to say that it could be the end of the week or it could be the end of next week. Let's just see how we go. I'm having to do it on my own. I'm not a computer programmer. I'm just doing simply my best, as there is no other alternative. So let's move on then to something else that I wanted to talk about. We're going to take a quick look at the Baltic Dry Index, and the first thing you're going to notice is at 291 points. If you recall, on the 16th of January 2016, it was at 373. We predicted over an average of 96 months that it would lose since the crash of 2008, on average 100 points per month. We checked it half a month. It was doing fine. We're going to check it in another 6 days. We've got 18 points to drop, which I'm confident it will, and we'll be on schedule with what I predicted, that it will be losing 100 points every month. Now, I don't expect this to bottom out to zero, because at the end of the day, it would be crazy to send shipping containers around the world for absolutely nothing. You might want to run them at a loss in order to keep them, in maintenance and working, I mean, there might already be stationary costs incurred for just having these things anchored up. But there you go. The main point here is that when international shipping ceases, freight on rail stops, and so does haulage that moves along roads, motorways, freeways, etc. And that in turn has a knock-on effect of how the stuff gets to the shops and what's on the shelves at that point in time. Guys, the Baltic Index is the true measure of a country's prosperity at the moment. If you're shipping stuff, you're doing well. If you're not shipping and you're not importing, there's something very wrong. Quick look at the stock markets. Although they're indicating green, let's just concentrate with the FTSE 100 because it's the same for them all. I mean, the Dow is just about keeping itself above 16,000. The FTSE a week ago was enjoying being over 6,000. Now it's back to 5668.95, so under 6,000 points. But the interesting thing is, if you look over the last year, it speaks for itself, a decline. Now, we know that the European Central Bank is pumping other countries' reserves into the stock market in order to keep them at the levels that they are right now. But I want to tell you something very dangerous about this, and here's the thing: when people start to smell an opportunity to make money, believe me, they will be poised, ready to do so. What am I talking about? Well, there were people during the stock crash, I think, of 1938, that profited immensely from the world stock markets crashing. And you don't think that those people have learned from that point in time what happened then and will replicate it? Let me tell you something. There are medium to large stockbrokers all over the world just waiting to sell. Let me give you a rough idea. Let's get up a platform, a trading platform, so you can see how you will make money in a crash of another economy, should that happen. Now, let's get the spread up. So, this is what we're looking at. This is what a trader would stare at all day long. What you've got here, we're looking at Brent oil, and we can see over on the left column it's at $30.79. Now, if I knew the stock market was going to crash or the oil market was going to crash, what I'd do is I'd just select, sell, and when it got to, the margin that I chose, I could cash back out and profit from betting that it would decline. And likewise, if I wanted to make money on buying, if I thought the market was going to go up, I'd buy at a low price and then set my margin where I was going to come out at a higher price and make money that way. So don't think for 5 minutes that people are not sitting on the edge of their chair when they start seeing the FTSE, the Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P about to go into a major decline, that they're not ready and waiting to ride that downfall of whatever it is, whether it be oil, gold, a country's currency. This really, guys, is how sick things are, and this is the reality of how things go in this world. It's very selfish to ride out on the back of a country's currency going bankrupt, but rest assured there will be people there doing that, and what they don't realise is that they are selling off the country's currency and in turn damaging the country through doing so. I don't even know whether this is whether the stocks and shares are a good idea. I mean, in my view, I can think of a couple of negatives. That is one. That country, people, greedy people can make money on the back of a death of a country's currency. You've got to ask yourself, is that something that should be allowed to happen? Because doesn't it encourage somebody to do that if they have an opportunity? In my view, it does. And for that reason, if you're damaging the country's currency, you're damaging the well-being and the prosperity of the residents in that country. The second, what was it now? I lost a bit of a train of thought there. Hold on. Yeah, so the second bad thing about stocks and shares is that when a company floats its stocks on the market, it has to almost secure a profit for the shareholder, because otherwise they wouldn't purchase the shares in the first place. Now, what has happened over the last 30 years, more so recently, I'd say at least over the last 15 years, is companies have been more inclined to pay shareholders returns on shares than they have giving wage increases to the people that actually produce the stuff on the ground floor in the flat factory. How right is that? Again, just stealing, an opportunity for the little person to get a little bit more and have a little bit more of a better life than he normally does have. We've seen it, haven't we, guys? How many jobs across the sectors have enjoyed wage rises? I can tell you something now from the UK. I have known in the last 5 years MPs have 2 large wage rises for themselves. Members of Parliament only. Everybody else can do one. It's absolutely wrong. It's unfair. So, that's my personal opinion. I just noticed these 2 positions down here were nicely in the green on gold, so we'll close them. And as they say, take the profit as and when. And by the way, this isn't real money. This is just a demo account that I play with. Move on to the other thing I wanted to talk about. Now, turning to something I think for the first time on this channel that we've ever discussed, and it's important because we've heard people like David Cameron say we invented the Magna Carta, and yes, it's sat at presidents for other countries as well. But the thing is this: there are only 3 clauses left, or 3 charters still remain in law today, and I'm not sure how they influence anyone for any benefit. Can you believe it though? Most of the Magna Carta has been overseen by modern law, and when David Cameron states that we wrote the Magna Carta, and then in the same breath we'll destroy, if we get elected at the next election, which he has been, we will scrap the human rights. Phew, it just amazes me that the person is still able to hold any power of government at all. I don't know whether I read this right, but if I just go to this last paragraph here, but by lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land, we will sell to no man. We will not deny or defer to any man either justice or right. Just think about this. When you bring a case of wrongdoing to a court, right, you're going to have to pay for that privilege, court costs. So, if this is one of the only last remaining statutes or charters left still in usable law with regards to the Magna Carta, how does that sit with you? Because if you're having to pay to submit claim forms, aren't you in some way being sold justice? Otherwise it would be completely free, wouldn't it? And this is a problem, because not a lot of people in the UK or anywhere else in the world, even if they were talented enough to challenge their defendant in court, could do so without first being wealthy enough to pay for court costs. A recent case, I've only done a foundation course in law and I'm not very good at it. I keep demonstrating that to myself. Recently I brought a case against a previous landlord, and I asked for a trial, but it was kicked out in a hearing, believe it or not. Isn't that something we hear a lot of these days? Eh? And can you believe this? I was told that I was having 2 bites of the cherry by bringing this case as well. But the point is that that case, to get it into even, it was supposed to go to trial. It didn't. It went to a hearing to prove whether there was grounds for the trial, and the landlord, with his barrister, and him being David Cameron's cousin, believe it or not, did very well to get it kicked in the hearing stage. But the point is it cost £2,600 to get that case in court, and the only way I was able to obtain that was because of the fact that I was on job seekers allowance, which is, job, you paid money for hunting for jobs, and if you're on that type of benefit, then you qualify for free legal costs. But the point is there isn't many people that qualify for those free legal costs in the UK, and even if you're having to pay to use the courts, isn't that in some way them selling you justice? In my view it is, and I don't think I've interpreted that wrongly, but it does say, we will sell to no man, we will not deny or defer to any man either justice or right. So, again, let's just think about how HSB avoided, any legal prosecution. When we, let's say there was an investigation and they was going to bring it to court, they couldn't, because they would have been told that they'd been fined by, the financial services or by somebody or other, and therefore, to bring them to court would be in some way looked on probably as double jeopardy. They've paid the fine and now you want to take them to court and probably imprison someone. That's a double penalty, and that's not how the law is usually dispensed. You can just imagine this sort of thing playing out like this in court, couldn't you? But the main point is this: there's nothing left of the Magna Carta that protects us, and we're here with David Cameron trying to destroy what little rights we have protected under the Human Rights Act, and it's just absolutely crazy. And this in itself is another interesting story. I mean, at the end of the day, Julian Assange is in a position where he is being arbitrarily detained. What that means is he's being detained through no fault of his own. If he leaves the the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy, he's going to be arrested by the British police and then probably sent to Sweden to face bogus allegations of rape, which this information has now come to light that the woman was put up to doing it, and there is no case in Sweden. But he feels if he gets extradited to Sweden, they will then in turn extradite him to the United States to face treasonous charges with regards to the leaking of the video. And that really is all what this is about. It's about Julian Assange being a whistleblower and showing the world what those American pilots did in them gunship helicopters to an unarmed crowd on the ground. And when a van or a passerby pulls up and you can see them get out this van to help who has been massacred probably by a 50 cal Gatling gun on board one of these gunship helicopters, you see them open up on the van as well. And I'm sure that does overstep some lines on the Geneva Convention with regards to not attacking innocent people, especially when they're unarmed, and especially when they're there and it's visible that they're there to try and help or provide aid to those people that are injured. Well, we see at the end of this video, in any case, one of those soldiers that was called into this region once it was secured enough. You see this soldier running out this region with the child that was shot in that van at the time. And, this is something that needs to be aired, in my view. These acts of violence and murder need to be shown to the world, and people need to face some form of punishment when they, commit atrocities such as this and they get it wrong. But what we see is completely the opposite. We see the whistleblower being targeted and threatened with imprisonment, and we see those people close ranks that commit these crimes, pull together and cover each other's back. No justice is being done in this world at this present moment. I know I'm covering some different topics in this video, but it all seems to say the same thing. The justice is becoming a rarity and a privilege for only a few, and that is completely unfair. There is 7 billion people on this planet, and in my view, if you want to look into arbitrary detainment, well, most of us, you will find, are arbitrarily detained in our own homes in any case. And I will explain why I say that, guys. If for no fault of your own you find yourself, because of the current climate, unable to get a job, you've got no choice but to claim benefits or your family starve to death, because it's not like we can go out into the wilderness like we used to and build ourselves a cabin and live and hunt off the land. Can't be done these days because everybody has claimed ownership to this land, so that naturally cannot be done. Yeah, about that, guys, just think about that for a minute. You cannot naturally do what was proposed for you to do on this planet anymore, right? You can't live like you originally set out living. Now, for some people, that might not be the way they want to live in any case. They quite like the cities. Fair enough. But it's not the case for everybody. I think I would like to have a go at being self-sustained and living out there in the country, but I cannot afford to do that. Isn't that ridiculous? Eh? I'm the only species on this planet that cannot afford to do what is natural for me as a human being to do, which is build a home, live in that home that I've built, raise my family, and, take care of my needs with regards to those things such as food and water. Doesn't matter whether you've got the knowledge and the skills and the ability to do that, you just can't physically do it. So I find myself arbitrarily detained in my house because I can't go out. There's, first of all, no jobs for even skilled people, yet we see the government just pouring in masses of amounts of immigrants, right, that have got, if I haven't got a chance, right, with professional qualifications, what chance have these people got when they don't even speak the native language of this country? Eh? And yet the government are letting them pour in. It's becoming impossible for me to survive in this country. And it isn't going to make any difference at a certain point in time, whatever country I choose to go to, right? I'm still not going to get freedoms of being able to go and build a house on a bit of land and raise my family. And I can't obtain the money to participate in this system in any case, so I am arbitrarily detained in my own house through no fault of my own. I can't, use the car because there's no fuel in it. I can't go out and take my family for a meal because they simply don't award you those privileges when you're on working tax benefits or job seekers allowance. It's an absolute failure of a system to secure some basic principles for human beings. And when you hear at the same time they're trying to obliterate and scrap off human rights, then what does that tell you guys about the system that we live in right now in the West? And it's working for very few people now, and by the time they realise what help will they be to themselves, let alone anybody else? With more laws coming into effect, what they're doing is quite simple in my view. They're crushing human beings out of existence. That's exactly what they're doing. Well, how many people feel arbitrarily detained in their house because they cannot participate outside of that property because of the cost involved in doing so? I bet you there's millions in the West. And it's getting worse. It's getting to the point where you make the cutbacks on the things that are not, in your view, necessary, but you keep having to readjust that list because your money's not going up. They're not improving the benefit system. They're not improving the opportunities for people to get jobs. Just look on the news. Even the mainstream media, as corrupt as it is, do report on thousands of jobs going each day around the West. Not just in the UK, America, Canada. We're seeing it, internationally. It's not good. This system is not working. This capital system is not working, and I've just outlined the reasons why. This capital system doesn't take into account that it's an increasing population and a decreasing workforce, or dependency for the workforce. And, the two just don't help each other. If you've got more people looking for a job, and there are less jobs because you're technologically advancing, the situation's going to get clearly worse. But you don't have to penalise people that fall into this area of being not able to secure work for themselves. You don't have to penalise them by arbitrarily, detaining them in their own homes. This one, I was speaking to my wife today. This whole system has got to go. It is becoming less and less community orientated. All those little shops that you used to get in your village stores have been put out of business by these supermarkets. I know of one case. I'm not going to mention where because I had a big fallout with the local authority there as well. But they built a superstore, a super mega store, really big one, outside of the town. And as a result of that, a year later, most of the shops within the village, within this little town, and it was quite a quaint town as well. Most of the shops within that part had gone bust, basically, because they couldn't keep up with that superstore not only selling all the stuff that they were selling, but selling it cheaper deliberately to put those people out of business. It's all geared up about, just look at the younger generation. They don't know how to communicate with each other. They've lost the ability to communicate in person with each other because of the technology. It's all done by tweets, Facebook messaging, texts on phones and mobile phone calls. Nothing is in person anymore. And what that does is doesn't encourage by any means community. When the shops in your little towns go, let's just take the butcher's industry. It's being pummeled at the moment by supermarkets. Now, I said to my wife this morning, I said, when you go in the butcher shop, it was an art. And you look at the display of different cuts of meat. You don't see that in a supermarket. You can't even get some cuts of meat that you could in your local butchers in the supermarket. And the supermarkets have put them all out of business. Now, the nice thing about going into these butchers is there generally was a bit of banter, and if you was a regular, he'd probably know your name and say, all right, how you doing? And you'd have a little bit of a chat as you was making your purchases. But that same thing doesn't apply in supermarkets. You don't use the same cashier because it's just simply not convenient, because there's queues of 20 people, so you're not going to jump in that queue just to have a little natter with the cashier. And in any case, the cashier hasn't got the time. There's 20 people behind you they've got to get through, and it's all rush, 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 and there's nothing personal about the service whatsoever. It's disgusting, in my view, what they've done. And they call that, how is that an improvement and a progression? Look at they're encouraging now. Majority of shopping for goods is done on the internet, and even now you're getting food delivered to your door if you spend over a certain amount by most major supermarkets. You don't understand what's happening. There is a targeted procedure, and it's part of this plan to weaken communities. That's why they mingle us up now with all these refugees from all over the world, and your sovereignty gets sailed down the road with along with your community, because if you've got foreigners in your community, you've got nothing in common with them. And with this, I just see it's not just this is not just a rant or a ramble, guys. This is the truth. And you've got to if you've got a pulse, you've got to recognise some of these things I'm talking about. You look out your bedroom window, and if you live in a city, and all as you see is 6-foot fences, right, where you've closed yourself in and you claimed your own privacy, whereas before there used to be small fences or even hedgerows, and whilst you was in your garden you'd natter to your neighbour. That doesn't take place anymore. Neighbours used to go round each other's and have a drink occasionally. That is a rarity these days. Those sort of things don't happen. You see it, and this is crazy. You see people doing it even when you go on holiday, claiming benches by throwing their towels on them. They're not even going to be using them at that point in time. They just throw the towel on there because at some point in the day they might want to use it. Well, they just chalk up that bench around the pool so nobody else can use it. It's all very selfish. And here's another example. When you go camping, have you seen these wind breakers now doing the same jobs as these 6-foot fences do in your garden? Guys, you're segregating yourselves and you're helping the government in their plans and their agendas when you do these things. These little shops in your villages you've got to start using, and you may rekindle those. One of the oldest businesses is under threat in this country, in the UK, and probably noticing it across other countries as well, and that is the public house, the pubs, and the bars. They're closing on average one a day, and the reason for this is just the price of alcohol is much cheaper to buy from off licenses, which is little shops and things like that, and generally people can't afford to go out to pubs. And again, where you do some socialising perhaps after work for a couple of hours on a couple of evenings each week, it's just not happening. So you end up having no choice but to watch the propaganda on your flat screen fucking telly. It's insane, isn't it, guys? It's absolutely insane. I was going to show you the terminology of arbitrary, and how that plays part in with Assange's detention. But I think you've got the grasp. But here's the thing, right? If anyone's could be accused of arbitrarily detaining people, it's no one else but the government, because they are a law upon themselves, and they are above all law. And if you look up the terminology of arbitrary, you'll see that it states that when governments act in this behaviour, right, in an arbitrary fashion, that is nothing short, and I promise you guys, even if you don't look it up, you take it from my words, it is nothing short of tyranny and tyrancy. So, take that at the bank. And I think with this rant that I've just done, I'm going to end it here, guys. Guys, as always, there is a link down there, and it's that little bit of financial support comes in handy for the time in which it takes to set aside for these videos. I could be selfish, and I could just put myself first, and I could do more worthwhile things with my time that would help just myself, but that would be, again, just totally against what I'm all about in any case, and what I'm trying to reverse. What I'm saying is if you can, spare a few quid, chuck it in the link, because that helps pay for things like, the electronics that we use in the videos. It helps pay for a bit of that time that I put aside. It helps pay for the website and other things like that. And if you can, it's always massively appreciated, guys. I would like to try and reverse a trend that has been happening recently with the support for the channel. And that's why I mention it in most of the videos down there. So, if you can, the link's below. And I'm going to say what I usually do, guys. Bear in mind what I've said in the video. Afford yourself the luxury of giving it a bit of thought. And as always, guys, You take care. Bye for now.